Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jay Drexel with United Tax Liens, and we have a phenomenal coach, one of my favorite coaches out there, one of the most experienced in coaching and investing, and her name is Erin Bates. She's been doing this for quite some time, a great history of investing and helping investors like you get on the right path to help achieve your financial goals and dreams. And today, we're going to be talking about tax liens versus tax deeds. So how you doing, Erin?
I'm good. How are you keeping, Jay?
I'm awesome. I'm great.
Thanks
You
for
look
having
phenomenal.
me.
Glad to
Thank
have you here.
you. Nice to see
Oh,
your face.
same ditto. And I'm sure we'll do more of these. But to get into this, since we don't have too much time, I don't want to actually put it out as tax liens versus tax deeds. I know that you work with people more one-on-one than I do, or most of our other coaches. Can you give everybody an idea of the difference between the two? And then, of course, how somebody can determine which one of those investment strategies is best for them to get started and how to kind of pick their profile?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you kind of need to decide upon right out of the gate when you're getting yourself invested. First things first, there's lien states, there's deed states, and there's also the hybrid of the two. Okay, so you can have a lien state like Arizona, for instance, or a deed state like California, New York, Michigan, of course, or you can have the hybrid of the two, which is one of my favorite, the state of Florida. So it means that you basically purchase a lien and make the transition into the deed. Okay, so it kind of depends as the investor of what you're looking to do. So the beautiful part about liens is that basically you can get into a lien for an interest rate return at any time. Okay, so that's going to depend on if you're looking to go through a bid down process and park your money, because if you go through a bid down process, for example, the state of Florida, they offer an 18% annual interest. Okay, so they're going to have a bid down rate on the actual interest when it's brand freshly released, okay, June 1st. So that's going to be determined of whoever is willing to accept the lowest interest rate on the lien. That could potentially get bid all the way down to 0.25%. Okay, so if you do participate in that type of avenue of the interest, you would have to hold the certificate for the redemption period to pass before you would be able to activate a foreclosure. Okay, so you can go through the bid down process, but the nice part about a lien is that anybody can get themselves into a lien because price point, I've seen liens that are as minimum of $5. I've seen liens that are well up over $400,000 per lien. So it totally depends on the budget of what you have to work with. Okay, so working capital wise, we're going to reverse engineer it based off the all-in amount. And then we're going to purchase the lien with the intentions of buying out all the other liens in the process. Okay, and that's going to depend again what the investor is looking to do. If you're looking to stay as an idle investor and only own that one lien and accrue the interest on the lien, or for the investor that's looking to acquire property, then of course you're going to activate a foreclosure and actively participate in the auction, or you just wait to see the outcome and either be redeemed with interest or you end up acquiring the property. Okay, so it is a little bit convoluted, but when you've made that decision, if you're interested in interest or if you're interested in acquiring property, if you're looking to go after a deed, for instance, that's a pretty simple process, really. Okay, because you're taking all of your working capital, but what you're looking to do is take immediate acquisition of the property. Hands down, it's the most aggressive approach of investing, because if you are looking to take acquisition of the property, what do we want to make sure of? We want to make sure that we can unload the property and make a really nice chunk of change on the back end. Okay, so it's definitely more aggressive, but again, you would have to have the full working capital available to do so, to participate in a deed through an auction process where you're going to outbid at the auction. Or of course, you could go in and buy properties at REO, right? So you can just buy the property inexpensively to turn around and sell. So it totally depends on what you're looking to do as the investor, but keep in mind, there's the administrative states and there's also judicial states. Okay, so if you're buying a lien in an administrative state, remember, once you purchase the lien, as long as it's past its redemption period, again, Florida is a 2-year redemption period, you would be able to activate the foreclosure right away. If you're purchasing a lien that has not yet gone past that redemption period, you wouldn't be able to activate the foreclosure. But as long as it has, you don't have to hire any attorney's services or anything like that within an administrative state. Okay, very cookie cutter. Everything goes through the counties. There's 67 of them in the state of Florida alone. If you're looking at those judicial states, that's where you're going to be looking at hiring the attorney once you purchase the lien. And they're going to force the foreclosure from that point forward. Usually it's going to be a lot more money up front because of the retainer fees that you're going to have to pay, right? Minimum of about $2,500 per property. I've also seen them well up over $5,000 per property. So once you purchase the lien, you're forcing the attorney to force the foreclosure until you were to take acquisition of the deed. Higher expenses up front, and usually it will take a little bit longer of a period of time until you were to take acquisition of the property.
Okay, so just to kind of summarize, and like we were saying, one's not better than the other. It really kind of determines, it comes back to something we say over and over again. Start your investing strategies with the end in mind. Know what is your goal, right? And especially when it comes to lien investing, make sure that you have the right capital. First off, talk to somebody like you that knows exactly what they're talking about so they can make sure that they're doing all the right due diligence. But also when it comes to capital, which is going to help them determine which direction to go, and you're going to help point them in the right direction, they want to make sure not only they have the capital for the investment in the lien, but eventually, depending on how long the redemption period is, have the money for either the foreclosure or the roll up, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So totally depends on that all-in amount, but even more so, kind of the bigger picture of what you're looking to do as an investor, right? Because a lien, as I mentioned, that's a great way for at least your bare bones minimum to accrue an interest return. Okay, so a state like Florida, for instance, to break that down, if you were to purchase the lien, right when you buy the lien, that means that we're automatically an idle investor. So the established interest rate is what's going to start to accrue on what's considered a face value. Okay, so you're going to accrue minimal interest, but you have no hopes of acquiring property if you only own that one certificate. So we need to wait a small period of time until the lien transfers, but objectively, you're always going to want to activate those foreclosures. The reason for that is when you submit that tax deed application or the first step of the foreclosure, that's where you pay out the remainder of the taxes and you become the primary lien holder. So that's what triggers that guaranteed 18% annual interest on your full amount that's invested. But that's also what activates that foreclosure. So now you're going to speed up the whole process to an average of about a 6-month period of time until you either, your worst case scenario, you redeem an 18% annual interest on your full amount that's invested. Your best case scenario is you just ended up acquiring that property very inexpensively for what you were into the investment for. So that's where we're going to turn around and sell the property and make a whole bunch of money on the back end. Okay, so it just depends on people's comfortability. I like the interest, or do I want to acquire the property and you know, go that avenue as well.
And also, but to add to that, your budget. So just as a hypothetical, if you got a brand new investor that came in and they have a little bit of money, not a ton of money, their ultimate goal is to end up with properties, but they know they don't really have enough to get a quality deed. And I know you could probably find some great deeds on undeveloped land for a couple $1,000s here and there. Would you are there certain counties that you as a coach or certain states that you could direct them to where say you can say, hey, like you just said, worst case scenario, you're at least getting X amount percent, and you may eventually acquire the property, but here's the reason I would point you in this direction because of your limited budget. We know we eventually want to get you going. And what's great about investing in tax liens is that the minute you buy it, you're on the right track, you're starting to accrue interest. Are there certain places you could direct them for that?
Seems to be a common question. I would have to say the answer is anywhere that I've made money in that county, I like those counties. The reality of it doesn't matter which county you're investing in, especially if your chances of acquisition are exceptionally slim. Receiving that redemption check shouldn't matter, right? So it's more so if you are having a higher chance of acquisition on that property, that's where I would say that you would want to do the further due diligence within that particular area, maybe even reach out to the business bureau or commerce within that area to see what kind of activity is going on within those counties, right? So yes, if you are looking to go after a deed, although it is more of a simple avenue to get yourself invested, like we said, it's more aggressive because you want to make sure that you've done all of the due diligence. So when you do acquire those properties, you're going to be able to make a profit, whether that be a wholesale or a real estate agent involved, or potentially you're going to develop on the property as well, right? So it completely depends on the property itself. But back to that budget though, Jay, remember, it's going to completely depend too. That's where analyzing a real estate investment opposed to a tax lien investment is substantially different. Because I think we can both agree, if we look at two side-by-side homes in the same neighborhood that are replicas, we could evaluate that and compare them as a real estate investment very simply. right? But as a tax lien investment, those two homes, we have to evaluate completely individually because it's going to depend on what that property owner has or hasn't done as far as paying their taxes over the years, right? So if we see that this property owner is only, say, 4 years worth of taxes in the arrears, that roll-up amount that we spoke of, or that all-in amount, is going to be minimal. Okay, whereas the neighbor, if he's 7 years worth of taxes in the arrears, well, now that roll-up amount becomes greater. So of course, you're going to want to go over something that's going to be lesser expensive with the higher value on the back end.
Makes total sense. And for those of you who don't know, this is part of the reason you want to have guidance from Erin specifically, or other coaches, is what she mentioned there is something that a lot of people are blown away by, saying that, hey, there could be 7, 8, 9, 10 years of back taxes due on this property. You're going, how? It happens. There are plenty of times, and I'm sure you've seen this, where the roll-up cost ends up being as much as the property's worth or more than the property's actually worth,
yes.
Right?
Absolutely. So that in our world is an initial red flag. That means your lien amount has exceeded the value of the property, right? So if that is to be the case, it doesn't mean that you're going to discredit the lien, because it just basically means we're going to discredit the assessed value and heavily do the due diligence on the market value of the property. Because as a tax lien investor, Jay, we go off of a statistic, what's called a horizon lien to value, which is the all-in lien amount divided by the assessed value. We want that ratio to show 70% or under to know that it's a safe investment. Okay, but the reason why it's a safe investment is because it's very unlikely that you're going to acquire the property, and most likely you would be redeemed with interest. Okay, so if you're doing your due diligence correctly, you should have a good idea of the outcome of the investment before you ever purchase the lien. So if that ratio starts to show very low, like say 50% or 30% or 10%, the lower that number shows, the lower chance you have of acquisition, because most likely you're going to get redeemed with interest. If you activate a foreclosure on something with a minimal HLTV ratio, it means that there's very little lien that's owed against the property compared to the value of the property. So you'd expect that the property owner is going to pay up, right? But if they don't pay up, again, this is where the property is automatically scheduled to go to the tax deed auction. So on that auction date, if it gets outbid, especially if it's got a minimal HLTV ratio like that, those investors on the online auction can see that. And that's where that statistic comes into play. 70% or under most likely would get outbid. Okay, so if we're looking over that 100%, yes, that's a red flag, and we want to make sure that the market value is where it needs to be, because we run a really high chance of acquisition.
That's amazing info. And for those of you that are out there that are listening to this and you're hearing it, it is kind of clicking, but not necessarily. That's why you need a coach. That's why you need Erin on your side, because she can break this stuff down. Even though it may be your first time hearing it and you're going, I'm not sure. She'll break it down to simplicity, make sure you know what it is that we're talking about right now. If it's going over your head, that's okay. We've all been there. Even one more reason to make sure you get your coaching sessions in. So with that said, tons of great content there. I want to thank you again for being on, Erin. I look forward to working with you on the next one. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.
All right, my pleasure. And everybody out there, I wish you all best success. If you don't have a coach set up right now and you want to work directly with Erin, be sure to reach out to find her schedule. She's very, very busy. She can see if she can fit some new investors into her schedule. Most importantly, obviously, best success to everybody out there. We'll see you next time.